For over 3,000 years, a single civilization ruled the ancient world so powerfully that its kings were literally worshipped as gods. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a land defined by giant pyramids, mysterious mummies, hidden tombs, and secrets that, honestly, still puzzle historians to this day. This is the story of ancient Egypt. Okay, let's just dive right into this. How exactly did ancient Egypt become one of the absolute greatest civilizations in human history? And on the flip side, after achieving such unimaginable heights, what actually caused its ultimate downfall? Part 1. The Gift of the Nile. So, every great story has a beginning. And for ancient Egypt, we're looking at a staggering 3,000-year timeline. We're talking from around 3100 BC, when King Narmer first united Egypt, flowing through the age of the pyramids and the Old Kingdom, the ups and downs of the Middle Kingdom, the sheer glory of the New Kingdom, all the way down to its final absorption into the Roman Empire. Keeping this massive timeline in mind is totally essential as we unpack their story. Now, it all started along the life-giving banks of the Nile River. Every single year, almost like clockwork, the river flooded its banks. And when the water receded, it left behind this incredibly fertile soil. Because of this, farming absolutely flourished, creating abundant food and, by extension, immense wealth. That predictable cycle, that was their ultimate secret weapon. It provided a rare kind of stability that other ancient civilizations desperately lacked, allowing Egypt to grow into an unmatched superpower. Which brings us to Part 2, the Age of Pyramids. With all that immense wealth pouring in, the rulers, the pharaohs, they transformed into literal symbols of divine power on earth. During the Old Kingdom, Pharaoh Khufu built the Great Pyramid of Giza. Now, we have to pause here because this wasn't just a big building. It was the tallest structure in the world for nearly 4,000 years. Even today, engineers and historians look at this and wonder in pure awe how they built such precise, massive monuments entirely without modern technology. No cranes, no steel, it's wild. Now, what's really interesting about this is that they weren't just builders. They were massive intellectual pioneers. They excelled in mathematics, astronomy, engineering. They even created the 365-day calendar concept that, well, we basically still use today. Plus, they developed highly advanced medical practices thousands of years ahead of their time. I mean, think about it. They were mapping the stars and the human body while a good chunk of the world was still just hunting and gathering. Yet, for all their scientific brilliance, the ancient Egyptians had one ultimate obsession. And that was the afterlife. You really have to connect their monumental engineering back to this deep, unwavering belief that death just wasn't the end. To them, it was really just the beginning of another epic journey. And let me tell you, their preparation for that eternity was intense. Pharaohs were meticulously preserved through this complex mummification process, and then placed inside those magnificent pyramids we talked about. But they didn't go empty-handed. They were buried with absolutely everything they could ever possibly need for the next life. We're talking golden treasures, abundant food, sacred objects. They were literally packing for a never-ending trip, just making sure their luxury and status carried right over into eternity. Moving on to Part 3, Defeat and the Golden Age. Of course, history is really just a straight line of success, right? After centuries of supreme power, weak rulers and political struggles eventually caused Egypt to fragment. Then, these foreign invaders, known as the Hyksos, arrived, and they brought with them powerful new weapons and horse-drawn chariots. At first, Egypt was completely defeated, but, and this brilliantly illustrates their character, this became the ultimate story of resilience. They didn't just give up, they adapted. They learned from their enemies' advanced warfare, and then they struck back with incredible force to reclaim their land. And that stunning victory, it launched the New Kingdom, which was the true golden age of ancient Egypt. This is when the heavy hitters show up. We're talking legendary rulers like Hatshepsut, who dramatically expanded trade, Thutmose III, who was a brilliant military strategist, the radical thinker Akhenaten, and, of course, Ramesses II, the great builder. Under their leadership, Egypt massively expanded its empire, built unbelievably magnificent temples, and basically cemented itself as one of the most powerful nations on earth. But things shift in Part 4, the final decline. So, beneath all that blinding glory of the New Kingdom, some highly dangerous cracks were starting to form. Basically, two dual forces began tearing at the empire. From the outside, they faced these relentless, mysterious attacks by a group known simply as the Sea Peoples. Meanwhile, from the inside, severe political corruption and economic instability were spreading like wildfire. Caught right in the middle of these crushing external and internal pressures, Egypt's mighty strength gradually began to fade away. What followed was just a relentless wave of foreign conquerors, arriving one after another, all wanting to claim a piece of the fading empire. First, it was the Nubians from the south, then came the Assyrians, followed by the Persians, and finally, the dramatic arrival of Alexander the Great. It was just this overwhelming historical cascade that steadily chipped away at their sovereignty over the centuries. Now, following Alexander's death, we reach a really tragic but heroic final chapter. The famous Cleopatra became Egypt's last great ruler, and she fought fiercely. She used incredible political wit trying to preserve her ancient kingdom, navigating some seriously complex alliances with Rome. But ultimately, after her defeat, the once mighty Egypt was formally absorbed into the rapidly expanding Roman Empire. Which brings us to our final section, an eternal legacy. Bringing our narrative full circle here, just like that. One of history's absolute greatest civilizations finally came to an end. Yet, as you well know, ancient Egypt never truly disappeared. Their colossal pyramids still rise proudly above the desert sands today. Their carefully preserved mummies still guard ancient secrets, and their beautifully fascinating mysteries continue to completely captivate and puzzle the modern world, literally thousands of years later. It brings us to this really powerful realization. The empire may have fallen, but its legend lives forever. And honestly, it perfectly ties together their ancient, all-consuming obsession with immortality with their actual undeniable legacy. By creating monuments and stories that literally outlasted the sands of time, they really did achieve a kind of eternal life in our collective memory. Which leaves us with one final, kind of mind-bending question to wrap up our explainer today. If a civilization's secrets, monuments, and stories are still completely captivating the entire world over 3,000 years later, did it ever really fall? Keep that thought with you. Thank you so much for joining me in exploring this incredible history today.